Hello everyone, I'm so sure you're having a wonderful day. I believe you've been enjoying this cybersecurity analyst course training. And today, in our special series, we'll be talking about the 8 security domains. Well, I'll be talking briefly about what a security domain is and why it is important to know about the 8 security domains. So we'll discuss the 8 in a row. We'll start with the first security domain. So let's start off right away. What's a security domain and why is it so essential? Security domains are various forms in which methodologies and principles can be applied. So if you really want to call yourself a cybersecurity expert, then you should have an understanding of all the domains in cybersecurity. These are the several parts that make up cybersecurity. An expert in cybersecurity with the certificate CISSP is supposed to have a basic understanding of all the domains of cybersecurity. So we'll start with the first four. I will tell you what they are and I will explain the first one. The first one is security and risk management. The second one is asset security. The third one is security architecture and engineering. And the last one of the first four is communication and network security. So let's start with the very beginning, security and risk management. What does it talk about? It breaks down into several things, and the first one is security governance. Security governance helps the company to put things in place like policies, procedures that can help to guide the overall security of the company. It's very important that the company has a security governance that puts in place the right policies. The right policies can help the company to achieve an overall security goal. For example, a policy can be put in place to protect employees from using weak passwords. There can be policies in place that make sure that every employee does not put any form of USB into the system except the authorized one. There can be policies that are in place that will make sure that every employee of the company does not use an external Wi-Fi except the company's Wi-Fi to access its network. All of these policies are a way to mitigate risk and vulnerabilities. So it's so essential that the company has the right policies in place. After having the right policies, they need to have the right procedures. How do we implement these policies? Procedures are important, guidelines are important because the staffs need to be guided in ensuring that they are able to mitigate the risk and mitigate vulnerabilities. The next we'll talk about is organizational roles and responsibilities. There need to be clearly defined roles for everyone in the organization. For example, the Chief Information Security Officer needs to have his role defined. The security analyst needs to have his role defined. The forensic analyst needs to have the role defined. Because there should never be overlapping of roles. Everyone should understand his clearly defined role. Who should you report a security incident to? When an incident occurs, what's the process of reporting the incident? What is the pattern? And everything needs to be clearly defined from the onset of the company. We also look at risk management frameworks. Every company needs to understand what management framework are they going to align with. For example, and it all depends on the industry the company is operating. If the company is operating in an industry that requires credit cards to be collected from its users, then it has to align with the PCI DSS. That's the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. Why? Because they are accepting credit cards. So it all depends on the form of industry the company is operating. If the company is operating an industry that requires some certificate and requires some alignment with some regulations and specific bodies, then they have to do so. For example, if the company actually is a company in the health sector, they may be required to align with the HIPAA framework. Generally, most companies decide to use the NIST framework for their operation. The framework of a company needs to be clearly identified right from the start. The next is legal and regulatory requirements. Every company in an industry needs to align with legal and regulatory requirements. It's so essential that you are complying as a security analyst. It's so essential that your company is complying with regulatory requirements so that they don't incur fines and incur reputational damage. Another important part is ethics. Every staff of the company needs to align with ethical standards in cybersecurity. Moral ethics of integrity, of honesty, and doing a work dedicatedly. That is what we discussed about the security management. Remember what we said, security management is so important, and it all begins with having security governance that sets policies in place, that sets standards in place, and sets procedures in place and guidelines to help the company to achieve the overall security goal. Next we talk about is the risk management. Well, until you are able to identify the critical assets in your company that your company needs to be able to run business day to day, you can't be able to manage the risk because you cannot manage what you cannot identify. So there needs to be a classification of data. What are the most essential for day-to-day operation? What are the ones that are actually touch points for threat actors, hackers, and all the bad guys out there? So there needs to be an identification of the major points of risk in the company. And it has to be classified based on high risk, medium risk, and low risk. For example, some risk can be human caused, like threat actors exploiting a vulnerability. Some can be system, maybe an outdated system, while some can be actually natural disasters like flood. We also look at risk assessment. For you to be able to carry out a real management of risk, you need to be able to assess the level of risk of all of your gadgets. What is the most important gadget that you need? Which one will be affected and it will cause a very high damage? It needs to be qualified quantitatively and qualitatively. Risk monitoring is also very essential. At every point in time, there needs to be a proper monitoring of the risk that the company faces and evaluating the risk to see how it can affect the company and the potential of it affecting the company. The next we look at now is security awareness and training, which is the most important part of the cake. Security awareness is very essential for every company because as a cybersecurity analyst, you need to make sure that you conduct regular training for all of the staffs so you can be aware of the security breaches, historical data of breaches, common malwares, and you can also be aware of how they can be attacked through social engineering, phishing, and so much more. Security is so important, and every employee needs to understand that internal threats are quite more deadly than external threats. So you need to understand the impact of doing things that are not in compliance with security policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines. Security training and awareness is something that you must take seriously as a security analyst because it helps your job and helps you to stay secure. It helps your organization to stay secure. There should be a clearly defined path to business continuity and disaster recovery. Well, according to the NIST framework, there is a path to recover. Every business needs to have a recovery plan, which should be part of the incident response plan. There should be a recovery plan for business continuity. In case of an incident, in case of a breach, well, the company is not planning for a breach to occur. But in case it does occur, there needs to be a proper plan to restore business. Remember, you might not be facing the law if a breach occurs, but you're facing the law if you don't do the minimum required things to prevent or mitigate the risk from occurring. What do I mean by that? You might not be able to prevent a thief from breaking into your door, but at least you should have a door that prevents a thief to a great extent. And part of what you can do is to have security doors and whatever it takes to be able to manage or mitigate the risk to a very great extent. Remember, everything we have discussed is all about ensuring CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. I hope you enjoy this class. Join me in the next class as we talk about the next domain, asset security.